I remember that in 2016 there were a lot of articles where you would had some random lady claiming that she's not getting responses for interviews due to the fact that her resume had a female name. And when she hid her name or when she changed her name, all of a sudden she would get callbacks. Now, the standard of evidence for this, the burden of proof, was literally, trust me, bro. The feminist would say, well, it's her lived experience, she has no reason to lie. So if that is the standard of evidence, why should we not take this Reddit post, especially when I actually do know a person living in London who experienced something similar, and we're going to go about that in a bit. But first, let's see what the Reddit post is about. So this guy wrote 200 resumes, 100 of them had a male name attached to them, and another 100 had a female name attached to them. The male ones got 7 responses for an interview out of 100, while the female ones got 45 responses for an interview out of 100. So the female resume was 650% more likely to get a response, even though it was identical to the male name. So then he tried applying for other types of jobs, such as working class jobs, restaurant servers, hosting, etc. And the result was even more staggering. He got only 10 responses for the interview as a guy, and 87 responses for the interview as a woman, meaning that as a woman he got 870% more responses. Now, this is not shocking, because unlike in the past, now companies have diversity officers and gender quotas, which means that if a woman applies, it's more important to get her aboard the company, because then you fulfill those diversity quotas, you fulfill the gender quota. Now, what's interesting about the gender quota, and do correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know of a single case that is an exception to this rule. With the gender quota, if you happen to have 90% women at a company and only 10% men, no one cares. Like, the gender quota is fulfilled, the company is very diverse, all is good. But if the opposite is true, then the company is sexist, the company is misogynistic. So in other words, it pushes employers to keep hiring women. I mean, look at the diversity in the HR department. When you say the word HR lady, almost everyone knows what you're talking about. It's almost an exclusively female profession. And the power at any company lies with HR. As I mentioned before, they can set corporate culture. If you were to hire only radical Christians in HR, you're going to see that their ideological lens is going to influence the way the corporate culture looks like. You're going to see that it influences who gets hired, who gets promoted, and who gets fired. And despite the fact that it's overwhelmingly female, no one complains about it. And the same happened at universities. Initially, there were more men than women at universities. And politicians working hand in hand with activists, they said, okay, well, we need to have equality. We should have equality, because otherwise the universities are sexist. And they had a lot of gender quotas, and they had a lot of support groups for women, and they had a lot of scholarships. And then you notice that the number of women slowly starts to rise more and more and more, until it gets, in some places, more than 50%. It goes to 60, it goes to 65. Do they stop the programs? Do they stop the scholarship? No, because the diversity officers that are hired there, they still want to make good money, so they're going to keep going. Until when? No one knows. The issue, however, is that this affects men and women. Because on the surface, it looks great. You know, hey, you're a woman, you can get a job at McDonald's. You can flip those burgers' wages. You know, you don't have to stay at home and slave for your family. You can slave for the corporate boss. Like, it looks great. But when you think about it, if you're a mother and you're stuck with a son in your house, and he can't get a job, like he's becoming 16, he's 18, he's 20, he's 22, 24, and he's still living with you, and he can't get a job, is that advantageous for women? Do you think that in a family where the husband has difficulty getting a job or advancing in the career is good for the wife or the daughter? Do you not think that, especially when you look at society, most women prefer marrying up? Like, they want to marry someone that at least have the same income or more than them. And after they become the HR lady or the CEO, and they look around them and they see that the number of men that win more money than they are incredibly small. And those men that do win more money than them aren't interested in them. They're interested in the 80-year-old supermodel. So it causes a lot of depression in society. Like, no wonder women happiness is dropping constantly if this is being done, because it's done artificially. Like, the company does it, if it's the same resume and the company simply chooses the woman because they need to fill a diversity quota, it's clearly artificial. Now, I do understand if you're, let's say, in the server or hosting industry, because, well, obviously, you know, like a taxi driver, like the voice of a lady over the radio is more soothing, both for men and women. I mean, there are some things where it is financially incentivized to hire women. I get that. Just like there are some other professions where it might be financially incentivized to hire men. But it's not artificial, right? It's like the way that the market is designed. Now, the reason I believe this post is that I do have a friend who works in London, and at a company meeting, when the boss was drunk, he said, "The only reason I hired you, Lucian, is because I misread your name on the application and I thought it's Luciana." Now, that is not just very sexist to say, that would be liable for a lawsuit. But who's going to take him seriously? Because the culture is designed in such a way that if you even bring this up, people are going to mock, ridicule, and laugh at you. So who's going to take him seriously? The Guardian? Are they going to write an article? Probably not. Are any activists going to side with him? Probably not. Right? So the only solution to this is to identify as a woman. According to the terms and conditions, it is allowed. Like, you don't actually need to be transgender to identify as a woman. Like, this is my advice. If you live in a place, because usually the places that favor women to this degree, you know, that are filled with diversity officers and gender quota, these places are very progressive cities. They're very progressive states. Like, you're not going to see this happening at a countryside. Like, at a countryside, they're going to ask you, like, okay, what can you do? Can you lift that boulder? Yes or no? Oh, you can't lift it? I'm sorry. Oh, you could lift it. Great, you're hired. Right? They don't have, like, the diversity officers, but in the cities, in the corporate environment, where they do, especially in places like Germany, London, California, they usually allow people to go to the city hall and change their gender. Like, for example, in Germany, they want to pass a law that you just go into the city hall and you say, I identify as a woman, and they give you, okay, here's an ID card. That's it. That's all that's required, okay? By the law. Like, you're not breaking the law. You're not doing anything. Like, you don't need the doctor's note. You don't need anything. You just need to say, I identify as. And they give you an ID card, no question asked. So with that ID card, where you identify as a woman, you then write a resume with the name of a woman. You show them the ID, you show them the paperwork, and then they're going to shit their pants. Because if they say anything about it, like if they even bring it up as discrimination, and then you actually are treated like a human being, because then you have activist groups, then you have people you can go to, and you can tell them a sob story about how you felt discriminated and marginalized, and then people will care about you and treat you like a human being. So this is my advice to you, okay? Like, it is allowed by the ideology. It is not illegal. Like, what I'm saying is just going to give you a layer of protection so that you can play this game. You do not make the rules for the game, but it is the new meta. This is a new patch. It's how you need to play, okay, if you want to be successful. So my advice, if you're in California, London, Germany, change your gender from male to female. It's not going to affect you anyway. But if it's allowed, if the law allows it, why not? Oh, my honor. Okay, well, if you want your honor, then good luck with your applications. Good luck telling your wife and daughter why you don't have any money to pay the gas bill, which is currently rising. You're going to say, it's okay. We're going to warm ourselves up this winter using honor, because I'm an honorable person. I have all the honor in the world. No, the correct thing to do is to play the new meta. You're going to identify properly, you're going to get a job, and then you can ascend to a position of power where you decide who gets to be hired and who isn't. And then you're going to start hiring people by merit, and you might actually become a useful employee for the company because you're actually making profit for the company rather than producing ideology. But until that point, you need to play as the meta decides. Again, We do not make the rules, we play the game, and this is how the game is played. Either than that, you can go cry on Twitter or on Reddit. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.